Good morning, droidcon San Francisco. 15 years ago, we gathered at the first droidcon conference in Berlin as a developer community. A few of us even gave talks and shared advice about building killer apps for the Android platform. But has that advice held up over time? Today, we're going to explore this question. This is also a story about our personal journey with mobile development. It's a story of two geeks.
Hey, that's us.
And the evolution of the Android industry from the days of cupcakes and donuts to the hype of AI. First, let's set the stage. Shane and I met at university just over the hill from where we are today. Shout out to our UC Santa Cruz peeps if they're in the audience. It's the most gorgeous campus on the planet. We both got computer science degrees there, and then we went on to work at the same first tech company in Silicon Valley. Several jobs later, we got married. Yes, thank you. Still. By 2009, we were indie mobile developers running our own shop. We've been building mobile apps since the Qualcomm Brew days, and worked professionally with pretty much every mobile platform at that point. And also, like many of you, we've done a bunch of open source work, some tech writing, and some blogging on the side. Most notable, in 2009, we did not have any kids yet. Shane, what else happened in 2009?
Well, Avatar was a top film. Farmville had just come out and was a top game. Interestingly, BlackBerry had 5 of the top 10 best-selling smartphones in the US.
How many did Android have?
It had 2.
How about Apple?
Also 2.
That makes 9. What's the last one?
Do you remember Palm WebOS?
Totally forgot about them. Okay, fast forward to 2024. Today, our jobs are a little bit different. We now lead teams of engineers who build mobile things. We haven't written a book in over a decade, and you'll understand why in a moment. After a long stint of being our own bosses, we moved back into big tech to do projects at scale. Eventually, we ended up leading the teams that we do today. Shout out to our Reddit snooze and Googler teammates who are in the audience today.
This is a great time for that standard disclaimer. All opinions in this talk are our own and not those of our employers.
Correct. One last important difference. In 2024, we are +1 kiddo and +1 dog.
We began Android development in 2007 when Android was still in public beta. In 2008, I wrote a short article for developer.com about this new platform. It turned out to be published at just the right time.
For this next part, we can just reenact the conversation that we had live.
Hey, Lori, I got an email asking if we wanted to write an Android book.
Because you wrote one blog post?
Yeah, it's not like we're experts, though.
Nobody is yet.
Good point.
I mean, it is mobile, Java. We've done plenty of that. Maybe ask for just a little bit more info, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, we'll see where it goes.
Oh, it went somewhere. We got extraordinarily lucky on the timing here. It was peak print, early digital publishing. Android was moving at a breakneck pace. Everyone wanted to learn Android development. There was barely a developer portal, just some Java docs. Stack Overflow was in its infancy. There were few forums, no online developer communities we could find, but we were learning Android anyway, developing apps for various clients. So we just started writing at a similarly frenzied pace.
Kind of like that cat typing meme.
Yes, just like that. Everything had to be explored comprehensively. We treated writing books a lot like we wrote code. We prototyped, developed small ideas into articles, built those into more robust book materials. We took multiple passes over the work for different reasons. We were constantly looking at SDK updates and release notes and evaluating new APIs. We built lots of little side projects to explore Android's new capabilities. We iterated, refined, and tested. We even checked all of our book stuff into source control, and I very much miss Perforce. But finding Android engineers, other Android engineers out there, was a real challenge. So we begged some of our mobile friends to learn Android.
At least we had each other.
Like Dan. Yes, and we also had each other. We also worked with other critical reviewers, invited technical feedback, and over time, we added some amazing co-authors and collaborators. And a few of them are even speaking at DroidCon this week.
We open sourced everything as we went. We asked our creative friends to help with artwork and diagrams. The photography for the book covers was our own from our travels. Our publishers were really good about that kind of stuff. It was awesome to see the projects and apps our readers shared from around the world.
Another highlight, our publishers gave us opportunities to build mobile-focused college curriculums, which aligned really well with what we thought was an important differentiator about Android. Android was open and more capable of democratizing mobile for more developers, unlike the walled gardens, gatekeeping, and insider knowledge we noticed that had plagued past platforms. The writing work, however, took on a life of its own.
It was wild. We couldn't give the books away fast enough. Android moved so quickly, it felt like the books were outdated immediately. We don't really know exactly how many books sold over the years, but our publishers said it was their top-selling tech book of the time.
And maybe they say that to all of their authors, but it was definitely true of ours, and there's no takebacks. We kept one copy of each of our editions, especially the translated ones, so that we could literally match up the page numbers in the books to help our readers. People would write us crazy hate mail anytime anything changed with Android, and stuff was always changing in Android back then. Remember the guy who tried to make the camera APIs work in Adobe Flash Pro and wrote us hate mail instead of trying an Eclipse project? Mm-hmm. He got very mad. We had a clause in our contract to get one copy of each of our books. Our publisher's answer was to drop ship us a whole box of each edition, even the translated ones. This escalated quickly, and we had to get creative about what we did with the spares. We gave them away to all of our engineering friends. We gave them away to our family. We used them as coloring books with our little family members. We made forts and spaceships out of the boxes. Our local libraries, plural, would get regular donations from us, sometimes after hours. I recall we burned a bunch of book galleys in the wood stove one winter.
Oof, pretty sure Lorax was disappointed in us there.
When you write enough, your publishers will often want you to go out there and promote those books with talks and interviews and stuff. As introverts, we really love to write and geek out about mobile stuff, but neither of us was super into the speaking part. We can reenact one of our discussions again for you now real quick. Shane, our publishers keep asking, will we please go talk at conferences?
I hate public speaking.
I hate it more.
No, I do. Let's just say no.
We might get some travel out of this if we said yes.
In that case, where's the most interesting mobile conference happening?
Well, there's this new conference called DroidCon happening in Berlin this fall.
Oh, we haven't been there yet.
Okay, so we had to psych ourselves up for this opportunity, and we made a plan. First, we were going to go to a 4-day board game convention in Essen. Next, we're going to go to my childhood home in Switzerland with promises of amazing food and beer. The beer was pretty good.
The beer was great everywhere we went there.
I looked up the most beautiful place to go geocaching in Europe, and we went to the Mullerthal in Luxembourg. Shane, what do you remember about that part of the trip?
Ah, yes. I remember we had to bring the Garmin GPS because neither of our phones at the time was good enough to geocache on their own.
Yep. Sufficiently psyched, we would go to DroidCon Berlin and give a 30-minute talk and slide presentation. This seemed like a sensible balance for work-life balance for us. And then after the conference, we would go geocaching for a week in Iceland, just, to recover. The talk we gave at DroidCon was your garden variety tips and tricks talk about writing successful apps for Android. I know we're up here to rehash it this morning, but we have to warn you, it wasn't even a particularly good talk the first time we gave it. We were new to public speaking. We had technical AV issues, the normal stuff that happens when you go do talks. Afterwards, Shane never wanted to give a talk again. It's taken him 15 years to recover and come back up here. Okay. It was mediocre enough the first time that I did wonder for a moment why Greg thought it was a good idea for us to give this talk. But as it happens, he and the conference committee had more faith in us than we do in ourselves, which is very on brand. Anyway, please don't leave. We do think this story is still worth telling if you're a little patient with us. Before we move on to the fun stuff, let's just take a moment to enjoy how garbage these slides are. They are giving off a very strong cyberpunk techno vibe, kind of like an EDM album cover.
That sure looks like the shade of magenta that Brew thought was so ugly to humans, it was used to indicate transparency.
Correct. And I'm guessing, if I check, that's the exact shade of Android green. But Shane, real question. Why are the slides square?
No idea. I think maybe we wanted them to look good on a phone.
That definitely sounds like something we would have done. So these are what the original slides looked like. And honestly, all I really remember about the first time we gave that talk was how stressed out Shane got with the AV issues, and how incredibly warm and friendly and life-changing it was to meet loads of other Android developers for the first time. We made lasting connections and friendships that we still have today. But don't worry, we're going to spare everyone's eyeballs and revisit this material in a fresh way today. With the power of AI. So, this is what we did to prepare for this talk.
We ran across our old talk materials, built prompts for a couple of popular AI services to respond in the role of a modern Android developer, asked a series of questions about the advice we gave in our talk in 2009, rabbit-holed making graphics, and...
Shane?
Yes, Laurie?
Why is the fragment so sad? Because it had no context. Anyway, while AI is cool and all, what we ultimately decided we really wanted to know was what you all think. You are the experts who live and breathe Android these days. So for the rest of this talk, we're going to do this in kind of the style of a quiz show, which is the theme of this morning. We'll ask you for your take, and then we're going to share with you what the AI said and what our answers were. And I know it's early, but your participation is humbly requested. So, shall we play a game?
Wait, what are the rules?
We will tell them later, maybe never. That's out of scope. All right, so let's have some fun. We're going to do a warm-up round, and I can barely see you in the audience right now, but you're going to be raising your hands. All right, let's go.
So, is it still a good idea to move lengthy operations off the main UI thread?
All right, live audience, what do you think? Is this still important in 2024? You going to raise your hands? All right. Thank you. Sure seems like it's still important. What did we say? Yes, we all agree that it's still very important for app responsiveness. It's still a thing. Shane, is strict mode still a thing?
Yeah, strict mode is still a valuable development tool for detecting thread and resource misuse.
Correct. Okay, next question.
Do Android developers still run into trouble when they forget to add permissions or activities to the manifest?
I'm getting the sense that maybe, yeah? Okay, so raise your hand if this is still a thing. Oh, okay.
But it builds faster.
Progress. So what did we say? Interesting. More people in the audience had this one. Okay, so because Android Studio is smart enough, I don't forget as much, but I still do forget. All right, here's a fun one. Many phones in 2009 and before did not have the same aspect ratios, and they had very small screens, like postage stamp small.
We checked. The Sesame Street stamp barely fits onto this old test phone screen, for example.
Okay, so the working square principle was a design technique where you made sure that like all your interactive parts of your UI lived in sort of a square space. Then you could subtly adapt it to different aspect ratios by stretching and padding tricks. So, is anyone still using this principle when they're designing their apps? Yeah, that's what I thought. It's gone the way of dinosaurs and absolute layouts, and these days, constraint layout and responsive design principles are preferred.
Before the next round, it's a good time to talk about our take on device testing based on 25 years of mobile development.
Has it really been that long? Wow. Okay. So we had to fit at least one meme into this talk, and so this is where it is. It's actually a meme within a meme if you count the Pokemon Grandpa vibes in the top right. But the point here is that even in 25 years, how we work as mobile developers has not changed that much. It still boils down to a person with a laptop and a USB cable and a test phone.
Or, in our case, a bucket of test phones.
Emulators were truly terrible in the early days. You needed to have at least some devices on hand to succeed. Our bucket of test phones lives in our office right next to our tower of tablets.
I consulted our future AI overlords to help inventory dozens of old test devices. You can see some of the phones in the bucket here.
When we lived in the Bay Area, we would just run down to Fry's or the Verizon store to get a new test phone when we needed it. Over time, this got super expensive, and so we started buying test devices on places like eBay. This worked out pretty well, except for there's something a little odd about this method. Sometimes the phones would arrive out of the box, no cables. There was just something about them. What's the word I'm looking for? They seemed...
Stolen?
Stolen.
Hey, Laurie, do you recall that nearly every phone in our bucket allowed users to buy apps on them via some sort of app marketplace?
Yeah, and I remember that a lot of the early ones were carrier-specific too, with all their own rules and regs, and it was a real challenge. These days, we only keep special phones and broken phones, and that's pretty much all that's left in our mobile museum in a bucket. Once phones came with a factory reset option, we were more likely to resell them or donate them to a women's shelter or something like that. Having a personal test lab isn't so relevant today because of services like Firebase Test Lab and Browser Stack, and emulators are far superior to what they once were. So, droidcon folks, let's talk about testing.
So, there's a testing principle in all of our books. Test early, test often, test on a real device. But how important is that today? You tell us.
So I'm very curious how this one plays out. Raise your hand if you primarily dev test on device. Okay. Keep your hand down if you mostly test on emulators. I just want to get a okay. If you don't test at all, the door is over there. Just kidding.
Are we kidding?
I mean, are any of your reports in the audience?
Moving on. Let's see the votes.
All right. So a lot of you are still testing on device, but quite a few of you are testing on emulators. What did we say? Even in 2024, we both feel that physical device testing requires you to use a real device. And that's how you get real-world performance accuracy. But the AIs were conflicted about this one, which is interesting. In 2009, you could build an app that seemed to work just fine while you were plugged in at your desk. And then you would unplug and encounter a world of jank on battery when you were out and about. How important is it now for you to test when not charging and on battery power?
What do you think? Is testing charging states in low battery conditions still important?
Are you doing this all the time? No. Okay, what did we say? We said yes. So it's so ingrained on us from the early days that we are still strong yeses here. But we suspect that many developers nowadays only worry about this when they're in certain app categories or root-causing user reports around a bug.
The most popular mobile developer tool to have on hand before the SIM extraction tool for us was a cookie tin. Why? Because it was the cheapest Faraday cage around.
And it came with cookies. So audience, is it still a good idea to test network signal loss, like going through a tunnel, by using what is basically a tinfoil hat for your test phone? Who's still doing this? Anybody? I see one hand. You like cookies too. All right, what did we say? Yeah, we still think it's the most practical and delicious option out there, but most people are using network testing tools like Charles Proxy and Fiddler these days. Before moving on to the next round, it's a good time for us to talk about our philosophy on field testing.
We have one of those?
Yeah, that one's ours. Yes, we do have one. Our philosophy on field testing is all about experiencing your work and the devices it runs on, untethered and away from your desk. You need to get out there in the real world and use your apps, devices, and wearables where your users use them. This means in a city with 5G, in the middle of nowhere with no G, on an airplane with no connectivity, at a mobile convention where the towers get overloaded, in the sun where things overheat fast, in the snow where batteries drain fast, and in the rain where you sometimes might find yourself in need of a Ziploc bag of rice. Yes, I'm realizing that our philosophy sounds a lot like a Dr. Seuss book, but it is true. This is how you learn to fail gracefully and give your users the best experiences in the moments that they want to use your app.
Yeah, both of us learn by doing and observing. To understand these devices and software well, we need to live, play, and immerse ourselves with them, and even watch others use them. We would prod, poke, pry, and, well, sometimes brick things.
When was the last time you actually bricked something?
Actually, I guess it's been a while.
Same. Okay, time for a lightning round. Shane, what is the best way to brick a tablet?
Easy. Give it to your 2-year-old. Laurie, what should you do if your wearable is overheating?
Take it off, especially if it's strapped to your face.
Okay, here's another one for you. How did you update your testing philosophy when you became a manager and a parent?
I have always believed in investing in junior talent, maybe slightly older than 2-year-olds, but this still is something that is really important to me. They will surprise you every time with their use cases and their testing approaches. And the other thing is just test, 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 literally until the fire department gets called. That only did happen that one time, but it was a great team building experience. Okay, Shane, what time is it?
Hey, wait a minute. Am I an assistant?
You are the one with the watches, usually plural. I think the most watches I've ever seen you wear at any given time, not ironically, is 3. Does that sound about right?
Visible? Yeah, that sounds about right. Remember when you used to keep an Android phone in your left pocket and an iPhone in your right?
Those were some very confusing times, yes. But one can never have too many pockets or platforms. Anyway, do you know what else it's time for?
Okay, guys. Take picture. Take picture.
We want to take a picture with all of you? And he forgot his phone.
Aha. Here we go.
You can do it. Whoop, thank you for
There's
that.
a light up here.
Okay, on to the next round. Devices were a lot more resource constrained in 2009. Let's talk about some of the ways you could bork your app performance.
Concurrency alone has gone through a bunch of iterations from then to now, from threading and handlers to async task. Remember loaders?
I've tried to forget them, if I'm being honest. These days, you've got lifecycle-aware patterns like view models and live data, coroutines, and other powerful methods to build responsive apps.
Well, we've already covered keeping things off the main UI thread. So what about optimizing graphics and assets?
How many of you optimize your graphics and assets for performance reasons? Raise your hand. All right. A whole bunch of shy hands here. Thank you. All right. Optimizing graphics and assets for target devices still remains crucial for performance and for the user experience. But Shane, are we still using 9-patch much?
Not so much. Vector drawables are often preferred for scalability.
Yep. All right, here's another one.
Do you still need to minimize logging in production code today?
Is this still a concern? Are you still trying to minimize your logging in prod? Okay, some of you are. What did we say? We said yes. So all that IO from logging could tank your app performance, and these days it's still important for security and PII leaking reasons. Early mobile apps required lots of device-specific fixes because platform implementations were so inconsistent across manufacturers. I almost labeled that slide with a specific manufacturer, but I was told that was a bad idea.
Is it good advice to fix bugs occurring on specific device types?
Who does this these days? Are you still fixing, like making bespoke fixes and having lots of checks in your code? A few of you are. Okay. So we said it depends, and the AI said no for the similar reasons. It's important to focus on issues that affect a large part of your user base. You want to prioritize based on severity and impact, but you do occasionally want to fix things if the device has a lot of market share, generates a lot of revenue for your business, or introduces vulnerabilities.
The next round is about scaling your apps to reach the most users. Is it still a challenge today to consider localization during design? Oh, Laurie, we did this talk in Germany the first time.
It's true. Localization was a hot topic even in the early Android days. As an app developer, I am familiar with the character-rich properties of the German language, for instance. So are you still challenged by designing in a localized way? Yeah. Yep. So developers today can use Google Play to target users all over the world. Machine translation is better than it's ever been, and we're solving for markets that have things like right-to-left languages and stuff. This puts a lot of pressure on designing flexible layouts up front.
In 2009, we advised folks to keep a handset database to track device info with stats, especially around screen size, pixel density, and adoption metrics.
Okay, lab audience, are you still doing this kind of stuff by hand? 0. Shane, do we still have a spreadsheet that keeps track of device stats? Are we still having to configure emulators by hand?
Not really. Android Studio does a lot of this for you now. And it feels like the vast majority of devices have very similar form factors today.
Yep, that's true, with possibly the exception of foldables. Tracking adoption and other app insights and hardware stats basically became unnecessary when Google Play was introduced, which replaced Android Market around 2012. It does warm my heart to know there is one less spreadsheet in the world.
Sorry, honey. I made a new spreadsheet for the phone bucket list.
Of course you did.
Is user privacy still important? Wait, why is this even a question?
So that itself is an interesting question. In our 2009 talk, we went so far as to suggest developers take note of the Apple and Qualcomm guidelines for privacy, simply because Android, as a new open platform, had no strong position on privacy yet. I think we all knew that that was likely to change as Android matured. Okay, audience, how important is this to you now? Pretty important. These days, protecting privacy is essential and legally required. The bar is higher, and you need to consider user data and privacy from the ground up. It will have implications to your business model and the global viability of your apps that you build.
Okay, so the premise of our 2009 talk was to explore the key ingredients of successful apps. If you followed our tips and tricks, your app may have become one.
Or not. In 2009, we emphasized quality and testing as being essential ingredients to killer apps. And in 2024, we feel quality is even more important.
Having a great idea isn't enough. Clones are easy to spin up if you have a great idea executed poorly. The best apps are well-designed, performant, and
built with the user in mind. Apps have become more engaging, interactive, and feature-rich as mobile hardware has gotten more powerful, a lot more powerful. Check this out. We did a little exercise with some AI assistants. I built my first computer in the mid-1990s with the best parts a computer science major could afford. And it's a nostalgic part of gaming history, that Voodoo card especially. The leap between the Pentium tower that I built and the first Android device, the G1, isn't huge in terms of computing power, but it was a drastic change in size and energy consumption from a giant desktop to the palm of your hand. According to our AI friends, without prompting, they said that comparing the first two's computing power to that of the Pixel 8 was like comparing bicycles to a rocket ship.
Sure, the original Pentium and the G1 were revolutionary in their times, but the hardware in the Pixel 8 and other top devices is another 16 years farther along, exponentially more powerful and capable. It's such a huge leap that it invalidates the premise of some old advice. It's a new world of possibilities, where game-changing abstractions are possible and the on-device capabilities are just barely being explored.
It's that old trope that every new generation is faster than the old gen's supercomputers. While we have bleeding-edge hardware and computing power, we've also noticed that over time, the sheer lack of resource constraints has led to some interesting changes. App developers are less likely to optimize early and upfront, but find themselves hungry for those optimizations later when they scale. Performance concerns that we used to feel apps lived and died by are far less important today, and engineers live at abstraction levels above where they used to. We love native Android development, but it wasn't our first mobile platform, and it probably won't be our last. Mobile development continues to evolve. Programming languages change, IDEs change. Flutter and KMP show tremendous promise in making mobile development accessible to even a broader developer community. Platform as a service is so good these days compared to the early days. These types of advancements allow anyone with some programming experience and a good idea to get further faster. Finally, Android continues to dominate the mobile industry, in part because of its thriving worldwide community of curious engineers, the kinds of people who build better together, the kinds of people you meet at droidcon. The developer portals are rich with code labs and guidance. Stack Overflow overflows with both good and bad advice. Medium is filled with interesting explorations of all things Android. Reddit subs are full of engineers debating the merits of this or that approach. There are YouTube shows, podcasts, boot camps, and even still a few good books out there. Just not ours.
Even our AI friends are getting involved in helping us build killer apps. Hopefully not literally. Mobile development is more accessible than ever. You can learn about it in tons of different formats. It's still possible to have breakout hits from indie developers. It's still about a great idea, well executed. So what's yours?
Thank you.